Good evening and welcome to our December 8th meeting. Call to order. Moved by Councillor Bougee, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that the December 8th, 2025 council meeting of the Township of South Glengarry now be opened at 6:33 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Ooh, got ahead of it there. If we could all rise for the singing of the anthem. Are there any pecuniary or disclosures of pecuniary interest? Okay, seeing none. Approval of agenda. Are there any amendments?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, there are no amendments to the agenda this evening.
And before we get started, Councillor Jaworski wanted to send her regrets. She was feeling ill. If she shows up, it's out of her own willpower, but I don't think she was planning to make it. So moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougee. Be it resolved, the Council of the Township of South Glengarry approve the agenda as circulated. All those in favor? Carried. Approval of the minutes. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that the minutes of the following meeting, including closed session minutes, be adopted as circulated. Previous meeting minutes, November 24th, 2025. Any comments or errors or omissions noted? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Oh yes, my favorite part of this meeting. So we have a proclamation, clear airspace for Santa. So whereas the holiday season brings joy, unity, and spirit to the giving, or spirit of giving to the residents of South Glengarry, and whereas Santa Claus has long been a cherished figure of goodwill embodying the values of generosity and magic for people of all ages, and whereas the Township of South Glengarry prides itself on being a welcoming and festive place committed to facilitating Santa's mission, now therefore be it resolved that the airspace over the Township of South Glengarry shall be cleared the evening of December 24th to December 25th to ensure Santa's safe passage, and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry grants a special permit for low altitude flight to take place over the township for Santa and his reindeer to make a special deliveries in time for the Christmas morning. Any comments on the proclamation? All right. I think we said festivities, so I'll just say Merry Christmas because that's what I'd say. So happy holidays to everyone. All those in favor? Carried. And for those who don't get to see the wonderful motion here, there's a Christmas hat, and instead of being all black, there's red and green. So nice and festive. Thank you for doing that. I like that. Action requests for Concession 10 Road Extension. Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougee. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2025-127 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry enter into an agreement with the owner of the parcel of property legally described as part of Lot 1, Concession 9, in the geographic Township of Lancaster, now South Glengarry, PIN 6715302886, for the extension of the Concession 10 to not more than 40 meters past the west property line, and furthermore, that the General Manager of Infrastructure Services be authorized to sign all relevant documents. Mr. Kuhn, if you'd like to speak to your report.
Through you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is for an application that we had at the end of 10th Street, or 10th concession, sorry. There's a property owner there who has a parcel of land that is not accessible on concession 10, and his request is that the Township of South Glengarry enter an agreement so the property holder can perform the necessary upgrades to concession 10 at his expense that will allow access to his property and some frontage. So administration has no issues with the proposed plan, but I'll let council speak if they have any questions or concerns.
Are there any questions or concerns of council? Seeing none, all those in favor? Carried. Moving to Riverview North Subdivision Draft Plan Approval. Moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 2025-128 be received and that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry recommends to the United Counties of Stormont, Dundas, and Glengarry, Director of Planning and Economic Development Services, to issue draft plan approval for Riverview North subdivision located in Glenwalter, legally described as part of Lot 14, Registered Plan 101, Geographic Township of Schlottenburg, now in the Township of South Glengarry, County of Glengarry, subject to conditions requested by the Township. Ms. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everyone. A little over, or almost 5 years ago, a little more than 5 years ago, we had received a draft plan of subdivision application to create 24 lots that would be south off of Lorette Drive. And you may recall us bringing a staff report to council in early 2020 to discuss this development, and it was supported by council then. The developer has spent quite some time and a lot of money on completing necessary studies to determine that they're able to meet the Ontario drinking water standards. Given that 5 years has gone by, there's been some legislative changes as well as role changes between the Conservation Authority and the municipality. We had to look at the conditions to ensure that we weren't missing anything. We've also changed a few things internally as well. So the staff report that's before you this evening outlines new conditions. Some of them basically we should have asked for in 2020, but just in how we're doing things now, the conditions are definitely more comprehensive. I've reviewed this and discussed with the developer as well, so there's not any surprises. And with bringing this to council this evening, we will then package your recommendation if it's approved to the United Counties, and then they'd be in a position to issue draft plan approval now that all the necessary studies have been completed. So thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions and comments around the table? Seeing none, put to a vote. All those in favor? Carried. Moving on to bylaws, to appoint a committee of adjustment for 2026. Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that staff report 2025-129 be received and the bylaw 2025-69 being a bylaw to constitute and appoint all members of council to the Committee of Adjustment for the Township of South Glengarry for the year of 2026 be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and sealed this 8th day of December 2025. Mrs. Haley, or I guess it's kind of a housekeeping item. Any discussion on this matter? Does council wish to relinquish Committee of Adjustment to? Okay, so all those in favor? Carried. Site plan control bylaw, moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that staff report 2025-130 be received and that the bylaw 2025-70, being a bylaw to designate certain lands in the Township of South Glengarry as site plan control area, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 8th day of December 2025. This is Mr. Raby and Ms. Haley.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm going to start off by introducing basically 3 different documents at the beginning of this, and then we'll deal with site plan followed by our grading and drainage bylaw. So one of the reasons we're here before you this evening is because there have been some legislative changes with the Ontario Planning Act that would result in us having to update our site plan control bylaw. we have been working and waiting for the new subdivision design guidelines that will be presented to you later for them to be finished, so we would do one authoring of the bylaw at once. And being we also have a grading and drainage bylaw, we want to have all three of these documents be compatible and consistent with one another so the standards are the same, and we're really not treating different developments differently for unnecessary reasons. For site plan control, just a little bit of a reminder here, it's a tool under the Ontario Planning Act, and it's a tool that's typically used for all non-residential developments. And there's situations where you want to use it for residential developments. You may have noticed in my staff report that there's been a lot of legislative changes since 2022, and items that where it changed the timeframes on how we issue site plan control. It also changed the scope of site plan control, for example, where we can no longer apply site plan control on residential developments that are 10 units or less. There was also times where they spoke about the fees and how fees would have to be reduced if we weren't doing it in a timely fashion. And then there was legislative changes that reintroduced site plan control to residential developments, providing it fell within, I believe, 300 meters of a railway, 120 meters of the St. Lawrence River, and a provincially significant wetland. So with all of that, as well as with the strategic plan goals established by this council for this term of council, and our council wanting us to update bylaws, and specifically update bylaws, my understanding was that it was to, be more accommodating for development while still having to enforce the required rules. So in the staff report that I prepared for you, I provided to you the proposed bylaw for approval this evening as well as the previous bylaw. There's a few things that I'll just point out to you if you don't mind, because there's certainly areas where we have become more accommodating. So, for example, we now, the bylaw that's currently in effect required all residential development for either additions that are greater than 25%, new development, or development that resulted in a grade change of 25% or more. If those properties were located on the south side of County Road 2 or the South Service Road along our private roads, they were subject to site plan control. That's no longer going to be the case. You'll see that we've narrowed that scope so that it's parcels of property that are on the south side of County Road 2 as well as the South Service Road, providing they abut a provincially significant wetland and the St. Lawrence River. So we're not pulling in every small parcel of property that would front on a private road if they're not, within that proximity to the river or within that proximity to a wetland. So that will be less requirements for the individuals. We're also requiring, instead of the individuals having to produce as-bills, we can do lot grading and confirmation certificates, and I believe Mr. Ravi will speak to that more further in their next bylaw. We've also made the requirements in the site plan to be consistent with the site plan design guidelines as well as with our grading and drainage bylaw. The reason for that is if they're subject to site plan control through land use planning, they can then use that same document and submit it for our building permit process if they're subject to that grading and drainage plan, so they're not having to reproduce a new plan or revise that plan. As you're probably aware, legislation had changed that requires administration to issue site plan control. That's why they no longer come back to council, and that's been going well, despite the province changing the time frame and us wanting to be able to issue approvals within the time frame. I guess I don't mind saying this out loud. We very rarely are able to issue our approvals within the time frame because we're consistently waiting on MTO or other provincial agencies. So when we don't have those agencies involved, we are able to meet our timelines, and that appears to be going well. So if there's any specific questions regarding the bylaw, I can answer them. Thank you.
Are there any specific questions? Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. Thank you, Ms. Haley, for the report, and I'm glad to see that we're trying to make things a little easier for people that are looking to build and expand our township. I wonder if we could have done some of this stuff maybe without the province telling us to. But I'm wondering, and I read this whole thing, and it's, especially the one about, that the counties had to do with the subdivisions plan. It's a lot of reading and not being a developer, not understanding exactly what they have to go through. I wonder, did we have any input from any developers or anything, that anybody saying that they'd like to see something different? I'm just wondering, those are the people that would know if there's things we could do to make things a little smoother for them, a little easier for them to get where they need to be without, doing anything that's too crazy. Because it's hard for me reading this to see if there's anything else in there that we maybe could do, and you likely would know more than I would, but is there anything else in there that we could do to make things smoother and easier for people to be able to get what they want to do? I mean, especially if they're going to end up doing it anyway, we're just not putting hurdles in their way and not costing them a lot of money, for more studies and more studies.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'll do my best to answer that question, and it does vary from different types of development. So for the most part, if you're subject to site plan control, you are unable to do this development without engaging professionals. So you have those individuals to work for you. And I can give you a couple examples that you can relate to of developments that are currently happening in our municipality. If we can think about the frozen food warehouse that's being constructed on Old Highway 2 in Curry Hill. So that's a quite large development for South Glengarry. It takes quite some time for them to do the design work, all the engineering that would deal with grading and drainage, stormwater management, site servicing, etc. They're already engaging a team of engineers. So with using this bylaw, you also hit on the new subdivision and site plan control guidelines. It's good that we have an up-to-date document for both the guidelines as well as the bylaw to hand to these professionals so there's no second guessing. They know exactly what our standards are going to be. In terms of when the guidelines were written, and I know I'm flipping between 3 different documents here, but it all comes together. We had our infrastructure staff involved, so our former general manager of infrastructure being Sarah McDonald, our current technical supervisor, Kyle McIntosh, as well as Chris Raby, who's our chief building official and director of development. And that was important for them to be involved because they are looking to create the consistencies and the efficiencies so that when you're handing a package over to an engineering firm, they know what our expectations are, and hopefully that would help in design costs or savings. If we were now turned to an example of a waterfront lot that falls within a wetland and on the St. Lawrence River, you're not necessarily pulling in a whole team of engineers for that, but you are using a designer that would meet the requirements under the building code for your house design. You're also triggering an environmental consulting firm, specifically a biologist, that then has to do the evaluation because it's provincial policy that says anytime that you're within 120 meters of a PSW and you're going through a planning approval process, you have to do that study. And that's something that you and I can't change. That's a provincial requirement. So they may not have that team of engineers, but they're engaging then a biologist that would then come up with a site plan and show them where they can or can't build. And then we would prepare agreements and they would follow through and enter into those agreements accordingly. It's not going, these processes are not going to really involve the average homeowner or developer because they're more unique situations. That answer your question?
Well, kind of, but, and I don't want to belabor too much. I just would be nice if there was, somebody from the other side saying, oh, I think this is great the way you're doing it now. A developer or an engineering firm that said, this is much better for us than what it was before. Because I'm not really sure if it is better or not for them. I hope it is. I have to trust, I guess, the staff is trying to find things to make it easier for them to get through things. So I hope so. And if there's anything that you and your team can come up with that say, well, here's something that we could do that would make it easier for them, then I'd love to see it done.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, not really a lot to add to it, but I think one of the things we tried to do with the 2 bylaws and the engineering guide was look at the areas that developers have a hard time meeting compliance on, and we tried to ease the restrictions in those areas or add a little bit more flexibility. So as Joanne or Ms. Haley said, these documents are primarily for the professionals, the engineers, architects that are coming up with the designs. But on the backside, the developer side, we did try to make things easier for them.
And I think you highlighted something, because I'm similar to Deputy Mayor Lang. If I had probably an Achilles tendon is understanding the ramifications of planning. So we do have trust there. You said site plan control and grading use the same plan, so you're not engaging different things, and that's kind of a nice thing too. Because anytime, like if you have to come back to council with an amendment in the future, I mean we're glad to receive it. Any other questions or comments? Okay, all those in favor? Carried. So we will move to the grading and drainage bylaw. Moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that staff report 2025-131 be received and the bylaw 2025-71 being a bylaw to control lot grading and drainage on properties located within a settlement area on properties that are 1 acre or less in size be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 8th day of December 2025. Mr. Abbey.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. When it comes to surface drainage, the Ontario Building Code isn't very specific, doesn't tell us a whole lot. It says that we need to have positive slope away from a structure and that we can't negatively impact adjacent properties. So typically, lot grading requirements are generally implemented by way of bylaw. Currently, most South Glengarry development is required to adhere to either our grading and drainage bylaw or our site plan control bylaw, depending on where you are located in the municipality, lot size, zoning, and all those requirements. Now, we do have minor differences that currently exist in both bylaws. So one of the things we really focused on in these bylaws is tidying up those differences and making things uniform across the board. We want a developer that's working under site plan control bylaw to have generally the same requirements under the grading and drainage bylaw, just to simplify things. Administration primarily uses this particular bylaw for residential development as it applies to urban and rural settlement areas. And smaller lots, so we're looking at lots that are 1 acre or less in size. In terms of technical changes to the bylaw, not to bore you, but just to go over them quickly, we are proposing to ease restrictions for accessory structures such as sheds and garages, 100 square meters and less, and dwelling unit additions. So if you are proposing to do one of those developments, you won't be subject to this bylaw. A professional engineer, architect, or Ontario land surveyor will be required to prepare the grading plan. Site alterations that exceed 25% of the total property area will be subject to this bylaw. We are asking for some existing elevation from adjacent lands, and that's primarily just to help staff make more educated decisions when you're working around property lines and make sure we're respecting the neighbors. One other change, swale depth's going to be reduced from 200 millimeters to 150, so a little smaller swale there, which I think a lot of the developers will be happy about. We currently leave a perimeter property band around the outside of every property. That's going to be reduced from 1 meter to ½ meter, and that's going to give developers a little bit more room for development and a little bit more flexibility. In terms of acceptable elevation tolerance, we're reducing it from 1 meter to 0.1 meters. That sounds like a big change, but we currently use 4 inches in our subdivision agreements. It seems to work quite well, and the developers are able to generally meet the 4-inch tolerance. So that's going to make everything line up, and subject to any questions for council, we'd like to proceed with this bylaw.
Thank you. Are there any questions on this particular one? No, it solves one of the 3 big issues, I'd say, is generally, garbage, gravel, and wayward water. So this is wayward water touched. So thank you for that. All those in favor? Carried. We're moving to Martintown and District Good Timers Agreement, moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2025-132 be received and the bylaw 2025-72 being a bylaw to enter into an agreement with the Martintown and District Good Timers be read a first, second, and third time passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 8th day of December 2025. Ms. Harbers.
Good evening, Council, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So this report is regarding the Martintown and District Good Timers. This group utilizes the Martintown Community Center on a regular basis for programming for their members, and they also host various events throughout the year. So this agreement just establishes clear responsibilities for the Good Timers and the township, as well as the fee structure included in the agreement for the next 5 years, beginning January 2026. So for the most part, I will say that the practices outlined in this agreement follow the responsibilities of each organization fairly closely to what we're currently doing, with the exception of the fee structure. For example, with the exception of one program, the setup of programs like pickleball nets are currently done by the Good Timers, and the Good Timers purchase their own program supplies like cards, pickleball paddles, and balls, things like that. However, we provide the equipment such as the pickleball nets or the shuffleboard mats, which can then be used by other groups because the township owns them. So the schedule that we outlined in the agreement follows a similar schedule as to what we have right now, or as to what the Good Timers use right now for the hall. So we aren't limiting any programming, and we're able to work with the Good Timers to ensure, we can do cleanup before they come into the hall in the morning, and then also a cleanup at the end of the day before our evening paid private rentals come in. So you'll see in the agreement we do have the fee outlined in the agreement, but it does not include extra events. It includes further programming only. So extra events like potlucks or barbecues, as well as the setup for those events, is not included. So they would then follow the current bylaw for that. However, I think they applied through the grants and donations for some fees to be waived. So that will come to council in the new year. But just so you know, those would be in addition to. So our department we have created some great positive working relationships with the Good Timers in order to get to this point of the agreement. And so we look forward to continuing to work with them, knowing that they provide some pretty valuable programming for our community or their members, which are members of our community. So it provides, value to our residents. So unless council has any questions, we're looking to enter into this agreement, and we can follow up with the Good Timers after this if council wishes to enter into it, and we can look forward to the new year with this agreement. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any comments or questions about this? No, great. It's great to have it formalized. So thank you for taking the time, and I like to see it. It means, as you said, you highlighted good relationships with us and them is great to hear. All those in favor of the motion? Carried. Peanut line speed limits, final reading. Moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that Staff Report 2025-133 be received, and that Bylaw 2025-55, being a bylaw to establish rates of speed on the recreational trail known as the Peanut Line, be read a second and third time passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 8th day of December 2025. Mr. Kuhn.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So the first reading of this proposed bylaw was brought to council on October 14th, 2025. It is to establish a formal rate of speed for the Peanut Line, which is municipally owned by the Township of South Glengarry. So following the first successful reading of the bylaw, administration notified user groups of the second and third reading and asked for comments or feedback. We did not receive any comments or feedback, but we did receive some positive feedback from the community about formally establishing these rates of speed for the Peanut Line Trail. So the proposed rates of speed are 50 kilometers an hour for the general trail, and then a 20-kilometer-an-hour speed limit for settlement areas and over bridges. So administration, we do have much of the necessary signage required to install already in our inventory, so the cost would be very insignificant. Then there would be slight maintenance costs for the sign, but it's insignificant. So pending any issues, I mean, we're open to any questions or comments from council.
All right, thank you. Are there any questions or comments? Nope. All right, well, all those in favor? Carried. I think we miss Stephanie on days, or Councillor Jaworski on days like this. Yeah, it's fine, yeah. Okay, key information reports. South Glengarry subdivisions and site plans, engineering design standards. Mrs. Haley?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I know we've already spoke a little bit about this when we were dealing with the past two bylaws, but I'll explain to you how and when we're going to use this document. We have a document in place currently. It's dated 2009. It needed some updating. It still worked. But the good thing about this new document that's coming forward is it's now going to be very consistent across all 6 municipalities. The United Counties had received funding a few years ago and decided that this was a project that they wanted to take the lead on and work with all 6 lower tier municipalities. So we often have similar or the same engineering firms that are applying for developments in each township. And again, that's going to create some efficiencies and consistencies. And with the work that was put into this, with the staff that I mentioned previously being from the infrastructure department as well as our building department, I believe a lot of effort has gone in to making sure that this document's going to be well used, understood, and as you'll see in our report, it's meant to be a living document, so we will change it accordingly if there's any legislative changes or industry standard changes. This is a document that I was looking forward to having updated because anytime we're doing pre-consultation meetings, whether it's for subdivisions or site plan control applications, it's nice to be able to forward this and say these are expectations. And I do believe that makes things easier on the engineering end. So we wanted to bring this to council's attention that it was completed. It's been something that was highlighted in our quarterly reports that we wanted to get done. So it'll be just nice to have 3 documents now updated, consistent, and be ready to use come January 1st.
Thank you. Are there any questions or comments on this particular one? If I may ask just a question. On page 142 and 143, it seems like in most places it has the counties for images. Do we just have a different, like the urban roadway and a rural roadway? I know that's a little bit probably more a former GM McDonald's input, but would that be something that's different in South Glengarry but not in other locations? And sorry, I didn't ask that question before. I'm okay with it. It was unique to see our logo there. Maybe the CEO can help us. I'm sorry that I should have asked this question before because it's not in anybody's wheelhouse probably.
No, not a problem.
answer.
No, each municipality, I believe, has their own road cross-section standards. And so this version of the document includes the township of South Glengarry's, both an urban cross-section where you can see there's curb and gutter, where the other cross-section is open ditch.
Okay, so we're just seeing our kind of our own, and where other municipalities would see their own. Okay, sorry.
No, and just to add to our CEO's comment, the pages that only have the county's logo on it are what their expectations are for their infrastructure. The pages that have South Glengarry's are exactly what Mr. Fothrop indicated.
I read something some time ago, and it said, for a good organization, be kind, be forgiving, be retaliatory, be clear. And I very much enjoy that we are clear here, because as you said, it makes things easier. And again, if the bylaw needs to be updated in the short term, we can always bring it back. All right. Are there any, as it's info report, there's no changes are seen. If we were to ask, is this, before it comes to the staff report, if we have any comments that we think of after, is there a timeline for you?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we're not planning on bringing this back as a staff report, and I'll tell you why. It's because it's meant to be a living document, so it's going to be an internal policy and procedure. And one of the reasons for not asking council to adopt it as a formal policy is if we had to make a simple change that would catch up with industry standards or legislative changes, we'd be having to come back to council every time to update it. That's why it's been put in here as really a good news story to let you know that the work's been completed. That being said, though, at any time council has any questions, you can certainly bring those questions to our attention, because maybe there's something you're hearing from the community that we could consider that could result in a positive update to the document.
Thank you. And then we'll move on to then 10B, discontinuing courtesy winter snow clearing for private laneways. I believe it's Mr. Kuhn.
Thank you, and through you, Mr. Mayor. So, in summer of 2025, administration evaluated the township's plow routes and looking for efficiencies and areas to improve. During the evaluation, it was noted that there were certain laneways and certain driveways that were historically receiving courtesy snow clearing services that resulted in an elevated level of service that had not been previously approved by the Township Council. Administration had sent a letter in early October notifying that the affected property owners that this courtesy service would be discontinued, and doing so in October allowed for sufficient time for these properties to secure their own snow clearing contractors or other alternatives. So the administration did receive a petition from the St. John Anglican Church located at 20788 South Service Road, requesting that the township maintain the current elevated level of service. Unfortunately, there's no record on how this elevated level of service actually came into fruition. It was not previously approved by council or discussed at council, and the fear is that if we continue with this courtesy service for select properties, that other properties could request the similar status and similar courtesy services. So administration recommends that we continue with discontinuing this courtesy service.
Thank you very much, and I'd like to acknowledge that we have 3 members of that church also in the audience as well. I'm glad that it made its way to council, because that was I think it started with a phone call, and we were trying to kind of get it on the agenda for discussion. So thank you for taking the time to bring it here, and thank you for the church members and their friends probably for putting it on the agenda. Are there any questions or comments? Because presently that service is not provided. Does anybody have any comments? Deputy Mayor Lang.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you. And I don't know if you'll know this offhand, but do you know how many we were doing? Like how many letters went out? Were we doing 1 or 2, or was this 10 or 15? And the council's kind of been slightly aware that there was a few of these things going on, but not really, up to date on what was actually happening and who was getting this free snow clearing and who wasn't,
Through you, Mr. Mayor, we were aware of a number of private laneways that were receiving service, albeit at a highly discounted rate. I believe the initial agreement that they were receiving service under, they were paying a small portion of the service. I think it was from 1993, somewhere around there. So for those laneways, which is a little bit different than a private driveway. A laneway is like a right-of-way through private property for multiple, private properties. And examples of those are the Marina Road that brings you to Bayview Road, Chevrier Point, Nadeau's Point, and Hamilton's Island. They've historically received service for that, but they were paying for it. So they also received a letter indicating that the true cost recovery for the township was being requested, and should they choose not to use the township service at a full cost recovery model for the township, then they were encouraged to secure their own collection or their own service. But for the private lane or private driveways, like the church, I'm not sure how many there was. This could be the only one. It's a fairly unique scenario, and there was no existing agreement with the township for that, unlike the other private laneways like Chevrolet Point, Nados Point, Hamilton's Island, and Marina Road.
Thank you for that. And it's old now, but I know back in about 2008, 2009, I believe there was something happening in the Glen Nevis Church. They were doing part of the parking lot for them, or doing the lane around or whatever it was. Don't know if that's been going on in the last, that's quite a few years ago. I think at one time there was some stuff done at St. Mary's too in Williamstown. When they go by the road there, they kind of, went in and did the parking lot for them. So just, I'm not sure what the answer is. I just think that if we're going to do something like this, we have to be fair. I'm not sure if there's any interest on the parties to have us do it at the full rate, or if we are even interested in doing that. I know we get complaints that our plows need to get to all our roads quicker, and I know the longer they spend on small jobs, like in backing up and this sort of thing, it takes away from getting the roads clean too. So I'm curious where the rest of council is on this.
And just to ask a question, I'll go to Councillor McNell in a second. Was it during the perhaps 2010 to 2018 councils, was it also the round church in Dalhousie, or Dalhousie Mills, sorry? I think that one was one that might have been done and was taken off too in around that time. So Councillor McNell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I'm along the same lines as the deputy mayor. I mean, if you'd have told me this was going on and asked if I wanted to reduce the service, I'd have said no at the time, just because really for the amount of work it is. But I agree. If every church in the municipality called us tomorrow and asked, example, like Glen Nevis would be an easy one too, that we go down and do part of their parking lot is essentially the road. So the loop around isn't much more to come in that way and then go back out the other side of the church. It's just little examples like that. I'm sure we could name 100 of them. And I don't know on a matter of how much time it would take really to do it. Is it really going to slow our plow operators down that much? I don't mind doing it, but I agree it's got to be fair. I was kind of, when I read this, I was looking more at the to see what the will of the rest of council was going to be. If I really think if we wanted to limit it to institutional properties, examples focusing on churches mainly, that we would do it on a cost recovery basis, and there's got to be some kind of a guideline where it's under a 10-minute clean, where we're not physically cleaning a parking lot with the plow truck, but if we're doing a loop through to make sure that they can get in, and they're going to do one of the volunteers is coming to do the major cleanup later on, or kind of the extensive cleanup afterwards on their own time, or whether it's a contractor. But I have no problem opening up properties like this at cost recovery if that's what council wants to do, and keep it that way. But I agree, it's got to be fair, and for the cost of doing anything anymore, if something ever happened, we really should have some kind of an agreement in place. It's getting to be that way just with if something ever happened to one of our employees or one of our assets while they're doing that job, it's always better to have an agreement anymore.
Councillor Bougie?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, and thank you for the report. And I do remember a time when there was quite a few more churches on the list that it was done as a courtesy, but I mean, for consistency purposes, I kind of went that same way as we're thinking of the same kind of thing as Councillor McDonnell. Like, God forbid we did one of these and something happened, we backed into something, and then we have an insurance claim, and then we're in a world of hurt. So for me, I just has to be consistent. I mean, the time it takes to do every little one of these can be very difficult, especially if it's a parking lot. To me, I think we shouldn't be in that business. There's lots of contractors that were listed on there that would do an excellent job. But if it was just a simple drive-by and kind of finish it, I mean, that's easy, especially like maybe in Glen Nevis when it's almost part of the road. But for me, I would probably lean in the direction of discontinuing the service.
Councillor McDonnell?
Just one thing I did want to note too, just I guess as the municipality ourselves too, we do hire outside contractors to do our parking lots. I mean, it's, you know, not to say we should have our plow trucks doing our own, or we don't even have our own plow trucks doing our own parking lots, but I say in certain circumstances, I've never been down to this church, but I do, from looking at it from the road and from everything else, it appears we're more or less opening up the entranceway. I'm looking more for a nod from the gentleman here, but it appears it's like things like that. I don't mind doing those things, especially if it's a small cost recovery. It works best for everybody. So I'm sure for a contractor to go out to, in most cases, these churches are a little more remote. Contractors aren't always readily available. It's fine in the village of Lancaster and maybe in Green Valley, but you get out to some of these rural churches and it is hard to find somebody, or they're going to harass a parishioner who maybe doesn't want the full-time job of doing the snow. But, you know, it's something I'm open to, just so long as we are doing it fair and it's minor in time commitment for our plow drivers. So.
Yeah, and I guess you don't mind if I share my opinion. So I suppose I understand churches as well as everybody here is somewhat active. Well, I'm not active, but I am the treasurer of the St. Andrews, and know the costs associated with clearing and even cutting grass nowadays. I'm sure that depending on the will of council, I don't know if I have to would have to remove myself from a future conversation, but St. Andrews would ask for this too, because, you know, as you said, like the loops, and it's an access way to the park. And at the same time, it seems like previous councils had kind of removed themselves from this business, and I'd probably lean that way, despite seeing like many names. And I mean, on that list, I mean, I believe I went to that one where Mr. Osborne had mentioned how his family at one point redid, I think, the floor. They cut the wood, they made it so like we have like it's always hard with churches because there's just so many gosh darn good people that are there. And I like Ginny Wynn, she opens up Wednesday night badminton. Like there's a lot of care in those parishioners. And I just, if we do it for one, I imagine many will ask. And then, like Councillor McDonnell did say something that I hadn't thought about, is like we also pay for people to do our parking lots because it's not really valuable for us to go in and out. I know parking lots are different than the lanes. So I would support staff, and if there was like give them a year to tell them, because I guess October, by mid-November, it seemed to be winter this year. So it might not, like it in a normal, or I should say, in a modern Christmas or year, you know, we wouldn't have snow until it stuck as much as this until now. So like maybe a phased-in approach, but it might be too late for that, like kind of like next year. And we do that with recreation sometimes, 200 feet bylaws. We say we're going to do this a year after, just so people have more time. So it might be a moment to think about how we implement these things. Big ramble to say I'm probably more on the line of Councillor Bougie, but and we're only 2 and 2 tonight, so I suppose we can bring it back. I think it would be interesting to see, like, and I don't know how much time it would take to see what like a cost would be, cost recovery, because I've heard that a few times now, and then how many churches would be in our area. I imagine there's, an Anglican, a Protestant, a Catholic church in many of all our communities, depending on how active they are. Quite likely all of them are active. Now I'm thinking cemeteries, but that's not on point. I'm just thinking, well, just rambling here. Went on a tangent. So how much time do you think it would take to bring a report back to that? And then I guess in that sense, like by the time that report comes back, it's like January, February, which is too late for this specific request for this year. I'll just get the answer and then go to Councillor McDonnell.
Yeah, so through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't think like 1 or 2 council meetings away we'd be able to do the work and to have, you know, a decent report for your information coming back.
So it wouldn't be for this winter season. Councillor McDonnell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, can I kind of look for a head nod from the crowd that, have you secured somebody else in the meantime to take care of this, or are you kind of running status quo?
No, we haven't. You're talking about parking lots. When they come in to St. John, they don't run any parking lots.
Okay.
They just come in and turn it back out. Often, you know, the area there is just been a service they've been doing for years, and we have somebody else that's after the clearing the parking lot and making it parking car.
Okay,
service to be there. And then where the parking lot, of course, we always make sure by Sunday we have, but the oil truck and these people come in during the week, well then, it's nice to have the road just plowed in enough.
So just
So-
for,
I'm sure it's about a 5-minute job for the plow to go in and turn it back.
yeah. So I guess, could I make a suggestion maybe to council, see if there's a will of council that maybe we, at this point, just seeing as, like, our first snowfall was what, November 11th, where it was significant enough that it stuck. Is there appetite that we can maybe perform this service, seeing as we've had this one, and if there's others, we can kind of, at least then we can go through this and make a comprehensive decision over the summer? Because to me, this is, it's not a recorded level of service, but it's a level of service we've been providing nonetheless over a number of years, and I'm not really in favor of lowering levels of service, and I'd rather have a fulsome conversation where we can see, okay, maybe going forward, it is a change. We're willing to keep on doing it, but there's going to be a fee associated with it, and it's going to be full cost recovery, or whatever the case is. I don't know if council feels that there's any need to do that, but I think just as a courtesy to finish off the year as we've done status quo, but I'd look to the rest of council to see if there's any appetite.
okay, and then just for those online, because Mr. Osborne had spoken, he had mentioned that they procure services outside of ours to do the parking lot, and that it's up and down the lane, and then just the kind of the convenience for like your oil and utility trucks, so to speak. And just, that's what we had heard, just because you're not on the mic. All right, Deputy Mayor Lang?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and through you. If we do that, do we put it out to the other churches we're doing that, and who else wants on board? I mean, we got to be fair here somehow. I mean, St. Andrews and Williamstown would be pretty simple, just to go in that little road, turn around in the parking lot, back out, and then basically they wouldn't have to do anything all week, just have to clean stuff up for Sunday service, The rest of the week it would be open enough that, emergency vehicles could get in or whatever. I'm sure there's, I don't know, it's a bit of a slope if we're going to do it. Not that I'm totally against it. If we're going to do it, though, I think we got to be fair about it. So, and I'm not too worried about the church. I mean, they had a few months' notice, and I looked at the names on that list, and there are a lot of very capable people on there making sure that things get done. I mean, so I'm not worried about it, but I do know that money in churches is, we're having to sit a couple to a pew so it looks like there's enough people in there because you could fit them all in two some days, but anyway, that is what it is. It's declining a little bit, so it's harder and harder to keep everything up. So I don't know, just want to be fair.
In an effort to, like, say that we do take this next season, is there any, I'm just trying to find something that, if we continued this for this winter season, and then gave ample notice to say that we, like, depending on, I don't know if it has to be a comprehensive staff report, because I suppose, like, if council is okay with this, but we could say, like, this will be the last winter, that wouldn't disrupt operations, I imagine, so much, and it gives them time to, I mean, if everybody's being treated this way, again, it's that all or nothing, and right now it seems like there's one and the rest, so it's either all moving to the, we do it at probably a cost recovery, or none, which is, we're one away from none right now. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of this particular congregation, because if this was St. Andrews or St. Mary or whatever church you attend, it's obviously a massive benefit to have your cleaned with the other roads. So would there be interest in doing it the rest of this year and then perhaps following the direction, or getting a staff report? Or, like, is a staff report something that we want? I'll go to Councillor Bougie, then Councillor McDonald.
Through Mr. Mayor, were asking if they could continue for this year at full cost recovery, or you're just saying to do it as we've done?
I was inquiring if council would be interested, as we've done, because it is, like, we are removing something, and I guess October, like, perhaps we don't feel that as a council that was enough time. Maybe we do, and then at the end of this season, it would give our roads crew and administration time to come back with that report to see, like, if we extend this to all, and what that looks like, whether it be cost recovery or it just becomes part of taxation. I suppose that's the other option. It might not be what we want, but that would be one option.
For me, and I'm kind of looking at Deputy Mayor Lang over there, I mean, in his comments about, I mean, we did give notice, and it's just about, for me, again, fairness to all the other churches in the municipality that don't get this service now and would probably like it. So for me, I wouldn't need the recommendation. I'm in favor of eliminating the service right now.
Okay, and would you be interested in a report coming back to see, or you're okay just stepping away from it? Okay. Does that, Councillor McNell?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I'd be fine just continuing it this year as we've done it. It does, like, it was sent in October, but October's getting a little close for church. I mean, I'm assuming they're not holding a parish meeting every week or every 5 days, or I'm assuming maybe monthly at best, if we're to assume. And they would have called to try and figure it out. But I'm fine if we want to just do it for this year, the way we've done it, and we take the time that, with the understanding that it's stopping, or it's going to be coming back to council to make a decision. To me, it's a level of service change. It should have come here to begin with in the first place. And we can't change that now, but I just think if we restored it for this 1 year and any of the others that haven't found somebody successfully to do it, I think, they might, all of the properties, if we put this out in August and say, we're offering this to institutional properties, here is the price or the cost per pass or whatever it is, I think you're going to see some of them say, well, you know what, we've got somebody who's a volunteer already willing to do it, and they're going to do it at a smaller cost recovery, or they're going to do it for free, or they might find out that they're cheaper to get at Jack Pine, and then if we do end up with one or two and we're doing it, we can decide at that point whether we want to do it or not do it. So personally, I'd just be fine to continue this year. But I mean, if the will of council's not to, it's all fine with me.
We'll go Deputy Mayor Lang, then Councillor Bougie.
Yeah, I'm okay if we keep it for this year, but I think it's got to be known that we're going to do something next year. Whether we keep going, it's fine with me if we're going to be fair about it. But I think we got to look at that and how much time is that, how much cost is that, or cost recovery, or discontinue. I think it's, as long as I'm fair with it and everybody's on the same page, I'm good with it. But if you want to keep it going for this year, if you get enough votes, I'm okay with that.
Councillor Bougie?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just keep thinking about the amount of time that it's taking to do all of these, and if we have a bunch of churches and institutions that take us up on this offer, we're going to have a lot of time clearing for this year, but I'm just saying, if we do put it out. So to me, I'd like to get out of this business. I mean, we have so many kilometers of roadways that we need to clear, especially with the big storms. We get a lot of calls when there's big storms, and lots of people saying we don't clear the the roads fast enough, right? So that's just the comment I'd like to make. Thanks.
Yeah, no, that's good. So then this year, I think, if you don't mind continuing it, it seems, is the, I guess we have three that say that that's sufficient, and then I guess right now, if we come back with I don't want it to be too comprehensive because I don't know how Councillor Jaworski feels, and like to be quite honest, I probably lean on the side of Councillor Bougie that I see us going up and down these lanes times, say like 20 to 30, because it would be a great service. That will take away from our whole roads. So I'd like to, like I have in mind, like this year, give them that kind of like phased in. It's happening, but not immediately. So they get this year, and then after, like my opinion will not change probably for getting out of the business of private lanes. But with that said, it seems like it's kind of like it's a 2-2 thing, which is not normal because we would normally have Councillor Jaworski here, and I don't think it's a strong one. So I'd say bring like I wouldn't spend 10 hours on the staff report, but give like a rough, like this is an estimated amount of time, this is an estimated amount of churches if they all went, and then come back and see if that's what happens with council there. But for this year, we will maintain that service for them. Okay. Oh, sorry, but we have no resolution, right? So it's an info report. A staff report has to come forward.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, if you are going to be providing direction to staff, I would recommend that somebody put a motion forward so it's captured in the minutes.
Yep.
And
Yeah, so you can.
yeah.
The reason we're here is because we don't have a record of it, so let's do it for
So
Councillor
it was
McDonnell brought it
present-
forward.
Yes.
Okay, so would you like to move that we do it this year? Seconded by,
For clarity,
Yes.
so you are proposing to, or you're putting on the floor to continue for this winter season for that single property?
just your mic?
Yeah, status quo for this year. If we can do we want to make it overly, or like, do we know how many we don't know exactly how many of these there maybe was, right? Or obviously, there's no record of this one, so.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, this is the only one that I'm aware of. I don't believe there is any other private dwellings that weren't on like a private right-of-way. This is the only one to my knowledge.
Okay, so yeah, make it specific to this property then.
Okay, Councillor McDonnell, would this sufficiently capture what you're looking for then? Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry directs administration to continue courtesy winter snow clearing for the private laneway located at 20788 South Service Road for the 2025-2026 winter season.
Yeah, maybe if we can just add the, until a fulsome review can be, or some kind of, staff can bring back a report for the 26-27 season, just so that we do have it captured that we're doing it for this year, but we are going to review it next year.
Not accustomed to the 2-2 ties in terms of opinions for the 26-27 year. In this downtime, I'll just mention to any members of council that we will be talking about our board and committees. So if you want to pull up the previous meetings, if you want to speak to them, now's a good time.
Okay, as revised, I have be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry directs administration to continue courtesy winter snow clearing for the private laneway located at 20788 South Service Road for the 2025-2026 winter season, and furthermore that administration review this service and provide a staff report at a later meeting prior to the 2026-2027 winter season.
So that was moved by Councillor McDonnell. Can I get a seconder? Seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. And the resolution has been read, so all those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much for your conversation on this, and thank you, Mr. Kuhn. All right, there were no items pulled from the consent agenda, so moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that council accepts the items listed on the consent agenda. All those in favor? Carried. Board and committee updates. STG County Council, Deputy Mayor Lang or Warden Lang for this hat.
For another 4 days. Friday is the last day. And Mr. Mayor, please feel, I'm just going to make a couple of comments on, we did budget for the counties on Tuesday, I believe, of this past week. Residential tax rate increase of 4.48% for the counties. Just some notes, policing costs have increased by almost 1.3 million, $1.28 million to a total of $11.65 million for policing in the counties. Counties are going to complete about $650,000 worth of culvert and entrance rehabilitation for 2026. A pair of large-scale bridges are on the agenda for 2026, including Cass Bridge on County Road 31 for $4.1 million and the Piston Creek Bridge for $750,000. And just for interest sake, anybody that's wondering how the county's budget is doing, our total gross expenditures are going to be $78.2 million. So that's the size of the county's budget, $78.2 million. That's it for the counties, I think, unless you had anything further to add.
Well, cheekily, I think I lost every vote, 1 to 11 on the day, or 1 to 10, so you didn't have to vote. So, but it went very well, and you did a great job chairing it. Were there any other commissions or boards that met? Okay, there was RRCA, I believe. If Deputy Mayor Lang, please.
I could do a little bit on RCA too, as well. We passed our budget on Thursday. I say passed our budget. The way it works is our budget is. We go through a budget, it's presented to all the municipalities, and municipalities have, I think, until December 18th to comment, as well as I think anybody else can comment that would like to, and then it'll be formally passed in the new year. So the operating costs for the Township of South Glengarry, $148,184, and there's $3,589, almost $90 of capital expenditures, I believe. Or no, that was the increase, sorry. 148,000. The increase this year was $3,589. Capital expenditures were $13,903. Sorry, I was looking at two different lines there. Just a couple of things of note. The Conservation Authority is hiring the county's IT. and which is kind of nice, keep it local, and they've needed IT services for a while, so for $30,000, the counties are going to provide IT services to the Conservation Authority, and it's going to work out, I think, reasonably well, because we're all pretty tied together, and everybody's using the same type of systems. Some grant submissions were applied for from Ministry of Environment, Conservation and Parks, 360,000 or 361 almost, and then 95,000, both to go to what are we calling it? Lakeview Marsh Enhancements, which is something that they're hoping to get up and going to be similar to Cooper's Marsh, only in South Stormont. They have quite a decent property there with a little bit of trail network in it already that just needs some extra. So we're applying for grants to see if we can get something. Environment and climate change, 120,000, going to the same thing, Lakeview Marsh. Ontario Power Generation applied for 4,500 for tree giveaway and family fishing day. And the Government of Canada, we applied for 95,000 for summer student subsidies. And I think that's about all I have there. Thank you.
If I was to summarize the mood was there with the conservations being amalgamated, it kind of changes the pace of play, because we were going concern until we aren't, and now we aren't. So that kind of was the overall thoughts of the budget too, or the ambiance. I don't know. I'm lacking the word, but it weighs heavy on the RRCA, because I think we are getting our ducks in a row quite well in the last 2 years. No others, no connectivity. Okay. So then we'll be going to closed session. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that council convene to closed session at 7:39 p.m. to discuss the following item under Section 239(2) of the Municipal Act. 2, a meeting or part of a meeting may be closed to the public if the subject matter being considered is E, litigation or potential litigation, specifically litigation matter. All those in favor? Carried. We will go into closed session. All right, so coming out of closed session, moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that council rise and reconvene at 8:10 PM into open session without reporting. All those in favor? Carried. Moved by Councillor Bougie, seconded by Councillor McDonnell. Be it resolved that administration be directed to carry out all actions as specified in closed session minutes. All those in favor? Carried. Just before confirming bylaw and adjournment, we did have our deputy mayor stepped out, did declare a conflict of interest as we saw the subject. So, yeah. Okay. Moved by Councillor McDonnell, seconded by Deputy Mayor Lang. Be it resolved that bylaw 2025-73, being a bylaw to adopt, confirm, and ratify matters dealt with by resolution, be read a first, second, and third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 8th day of December 2025. All those in favor? Carried. Before adjournment, any events this weekend? I know there's the Williamstown Parade for Santa Claus. Any others that you can think of? Sorry, I put everybody on the spot. I should really maybe send a message out before and ask. No? Okay. Yeah. Just remember to cheer for Santa. Okay, adjournment moved by Deputy Mayor Lang, seconded by Councillor Bougie. Be it resolved that the Council of the Township of South Glengarry adjourned to the call of the chair at 8:12 p.m. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you very much, everyone. And if we don't see you before Christmas, Merry Christmas or Happy Holidays.